Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show. It's Wednesday. Great to have your company. I'm Peter Martin. Alan Rough and Glasgow City and Scotland midfielder Leanne Crichton joins us on the programme. We've got lots to talk about. Here's what's on the agenda. Rangers face a battle to try and sign Ryan Kent. I would suggest to you, Roughie, even if it was down at $2 million, I think Rangers would be toiling to try and get Ryan Kent to the Scottish Premiership.
Yeah, I think at this moment in time, Rangers don't have the financial clout to go down that road. A Championship or even a Premiership club down in England would pay that kind of money without even blinking. So that's the problem we've got. And I think if Liverpool have decided that they want the money, then he won't be at Rangers next year.
Yeah, a good player. I think there's more to come from him with his end product, Leanne.
Yeah, really good player. Lacks consistency, I think, this year. A couple of games I've watched him, he's really set the game alight, especially early on the European games, I think, when Rangers were performing really well at home. But as the seasons went on, he's had games where he's produced and other games that he just kind of fizzles out. So I think in terms of his price tag and the end product, producing more goals, providing more goals, I think there's certainly, one or two bits of his game that he can tidy up on and certainly be more consistent with.
Yeah, and consistency involves doing it in big games, Roughie. I thought he had a good game against Celtic at Ibrox. But again, Mikael Lustig for me is gone anyway. I think he'll be gone in the summer. He's not exactly a good barometer for giving Ryan Kent a torrid time, to be perfectly honest with you.
No, not that one particular game, but there are other games as he's quite an exciting player. He's like Forrest or Sinclair in the Celtic team. He goes forward and he runs at people, he takes them on, and he's exciting to watch on his game. But as Leanne is saying there, the big thing is consistency, and the good players consistently turn it on at big games. He's not done that yet. But again, he's got the weekend to come, and if he's up against Lustig, I would think Rangers fans will be hoping that is a scenario.
Yeah, and of course, let's not forget Rangers have Jordan Jones next season.
Well, that's it, and it's competition that I feel Steven Gerrard would have liked to have kept Ryan Kent at the club, so that you have that luxury of being able to change different games, keeping those players that are flair players, training week in, week out, having that competitiveness within your squad. But with a price tag like that, it's looking very unlikely. Whether Jordan Jones will be a replacement for Ryan Kent, then that might shape up to be what happens. Yeah,
it's the countdown to Sunday. Of course, first against second. There's all sorts of speculation of players coming back. Barisic looks as if he's struggling to try and make it for this one. He's out for at least 2 weeks. Over and above Barisic, you've got the possibility of Lustig declaring himself fit. Whether that's a good thing for Celtic fans, I don't know. But over and above that, Tom Rogic is almost certainly someone that causes damage in Old Firm games.
Yeah, we saw that. He's a massive player, not only in domestic football but European football as well. And he's another one on his game. He's a match winner, as we saw in the big games. So he'll be a big player if they can declare him fit.
Yeah, and you can always tell it's the build-up to Celtic against Rangers. At any time, I always feel as if there's a few stories that are thrown out there. Some is a noise-up so that managers can put the paper on the wall in the dressing room, and some that are just plain crazy. So he's 5-1, Rafa Benitez. The odds have been slashed on him to become the next Celtic manager. I think just basically Neil Lennon is like the Grand National horse. He's out in front. It's his to lose if he wins the league and the cup. You'd be hard pushed not to give him the job.
No, he's in the box seat, and anybody that's in the box seat, if they tick the right boxes and they get the results that the supporters want, obviously 10 in a row is something the Celtic fans want. And Neil is the kind of player that fans want. I think the first time that he got the job, it was the fans that got him the job. They demanded that they gave him it, obviously, for what he'd done at the club. And obviously with the two domestic trophies up for grab, if he was to get them, I would say even one of them, I mean, he's going to get the league anyway, but I think it's just a given.
Yeah, you're not buying into it, are you?
No, I don't. I think it's a story that is there just to keep things exciting this week. I would be very surprised if Rafa Benitez even looked at the job to come up to Scotland. I think the position that he's in with Newcastle, I know it's maybe not been everything that he's expected, but I think in terms of Rafa Benitez's stature in world football, I think there would be a few more clubs also interested in his services, and whether he would be comfortable with coming into that job with a 2-year remit that it might turn out to be. I'm not convinced he would be keen for it.
Yeah, are you buying into Lennon getting the job?
I think right now he's probably, as you have both said, in the hot seat, but I do think that Celtic will weigh up that decision. I think it's a pressured decision for them. As Roughie says, the fans want 10 in a row. They need to make sure that they get the right person in the job, and as much as this season for Neil Lennon to get the trophies over the line might be a bit less pressure than putting them into that hot seat for a 2-year period.
Yep, it is a game coming up that I think Rangers have to win it. Celtic don't have to win it at Celtic Park, even although there's still another game to come at Ibrox after the split. But this one I think is maybe with a little bit of revenge in the air, and then should Rangers go into it with confidence on the basis of what happened in the last one?
Well, I think they need to. They're coming off the back of a poor run of form. I think no wins in 4. So they certainly get a point to prove. There's no better place to go to in Parkhead and Celtic Park and prove to the fans that the season hasn't been as unsuccessful as it might look just now. It's an opportunity, I think, if Rangers are seriously looking to stop Celtic's bid for 10 in a row, that they need to consistently perform against them to at least give the club that momentum to move forward. But Celtic will be very difficult to take on this weekend, I'm sure. Yeah,
I think depending on how it goes, I don't think they'll get rid of him. But I do think people will be calling for Steven Gerrard's head. I think there's a period that comes with being Steven Gerrard, the legendary footballer for Liverpool and England. I think that has carried him. It certainly carried him with the statistics in comparison to a Warburton, a Murty, a Pedro Caixinha. But I think there's a moment when suddenly that's forgotten, and I think a heavy defeat will prompt some Rangers fans to say, "Oh, wait a minute here."
Yep, I think, as you're saying, a heavy defeat could certainly sway things. I think if it's a close defeat in terms of a 1-0 or a 2-1, I think the Rangers fans, as much as they would be disappointed, I think they can live with that because they will feel like they're getting closer to Celtic. I think come the end of the season, it will need to be looked at over the course of a season because we know how quickly at a points deficit can change. It could go from 10 to 5 over a couple of games. But certainly, as you say, Steven Gerrard being Steven Gerrard is only going to take him so far. I think he's been cut a wee bit more slack on the basis that the fans are expecting something else to come with that, whether it's his experience of the game, whether that's players that he can keep tapping into in the future to bring more quality into the club. But certainly that clock doesn't tick, for too long in an Old Firm scenario. Yeah,
I think the European run has certainly enhanced his credibility.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of the season he had 3 boxes to tick. One was to bring better players to the club.
Has he done that?
Yeah, I think he has. Yeah, I think they are a better side with the personnel. The other tick was obviously Europe that you've touched on. I think they're vastly improvement. I think the supporters were pleased at how far they got in that. The only box he hasn't ticked is Celtic. And there's only one way you can do that is to win games.
Yeah. Do you see second place and that's it, Roughie? I mean, how do you see Sunday going? Is it a game that Rangers can go there and win?
I think Rangers will be hanging on to that. Celtic are winning games, but they're not winning them in the manner that they have been. No late goal against Hearts, no late goal against Dundee. They'll look at that game at New Year, and if they think that game is anything to base on winning at the weekend, they better forget about it, because if you think back at that Celtic team, you had wee Mickey Johnson centre forward, you had no Tierney, and there was another couple of positions as well. So I wouldn't go by that, because we all know when Celtic need to turn up, they turn up.
Yep, okay. You can give us your view on it on social media, on YouTube, on Facebook and Twitter as well. How do you see Celtic against Rangers going on Sunday afternoon? We'll be reading out some of your messages throughout this week. We'll be bringing you the build-up to the big game as well. Coming up, we will be looking at the comments of Paul Hartley regarding some Scotland players who just don't want to turn up anymore, and good news for Hearts fans and Stevie Naismith. But here's that quiz. Do you remember the answer? The reason I mentioned, do you remember the answer, is because I foolishly gave it out on Monday's programme. So anybody who doesn't get it, Leanne, needs to have a long, hard look at themselves. Just before we get a chance to talk about St Johnstone against St Mirren, which is on tonight, Roughie, Paul Hartley's come out and basically said some of the Scotland players who really have avoided playing for the country come up with excuses. They should all be ashamed of themselves, and I'm backing him 100% on that.
Yeah, I think the majority of us would fall into that category. I think some of the excuses put out have been pretty lame. I know it's hard to sit here and say that anybody makes a decision not to play for, obviously, injury-wise. You know, you've got to look at that as well. But I think Alec and Peter Grant will know exactly the players who really, really wanted to come on that trip. And I don't think we'll see them again.
Yeah.
I think that's the way it's got to be. You've got to decide the ones that are legit and the ones that aren't, and the ones that aren't just don't play.
Yeah, I think over and above that, you should just basically, if somebody says, here's your reason, just get it out there. Because at the end of the day, see if Scotland were on the verge of qualification, they'd be jumping through hoops, walking over broken glass to get there. It's almost as if, well, the PR's not good for it at the moment, I'm not going to play, I'm going to come up with an excuse.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think as a Scotland fan looking at it, you want to see your best players in and around the team all the time. Even if the team's unsuccessful, you at least know that you've given 100% and that the best players were there doing everything that they possibly could to make things better. And it's not felt like that of late. But whether that's down to the players or just how things are at present, as you're saying, you know, the pressure around it, you know,
It's not all of them, Leanne. There are some who've got
definitely
legitimate reasons.
Yeah, they have. You know, as you say, if it's the false reasons that they're saying as to why they're not turning up, then just say it how it is, and you know, it would clear the air for a lot of fans, I think.
Yeah, and it's not something unique to the 21st century and now, Roughie. There are some players, when it didn't suit them before, suddenly come up with ailments or they weren't in the right frame of mind. I'm talking 20, 30 years ago as well. I had no time for them then, and I've no time for some of them now.
Yeah, it was, my memory serves me well, it was isolated. You know, it was players who'd maybe fallen out with the manager and come up with some lame excuse not to travel or not to play. And that was unfortunate, but the majority of the players in my time just bust a gut to get there, to actually be part of the squad, you know. And I know this sounds a ridiculous scenario, but imagine we go to the final of a European tournament and the game was an AstroTurf. Think they would all say, no, I'm not playing in it.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah, it's a nonsense. I mean, I'm not a fan of AstroTurf, but it's a nonsense. No. I mean, there's Callum Patterson. He's just picked up an injury in grass. He's out for 3 months. You know, so, but listen, they're looking for one excuse after another. I just want to concentrate in my club for him. I just want to do this. I just want to do that. You know, if you don't want to play, great. Just let them go. Don't mention them again, and don't give them any credibility. You know, after it. If you don't want to play for your country, fine. You know, go. End of story. Simple as that. Well, I'm not happy with it. It's just a nonsense. Listen, it's a modern day footballer. Half of them have got that much money now that it doesn't matter to them. They can say, stuff the country. I've got my money. I've made my money in the game, and I'll try and prolong it for as long as I can. But it doesn't involve Scotland because you're not playing very well. There's no chance you can go to a championship and enhance my individual career. That's it in a nutshell, Roughie. Yeah,
you've hit it in the head. You know, but it's a difficult one for Alec McLeish because he'll want the best players available to play, so he's the one that's got to come up with the ones who do and the ones who don't, and let's hope he picks the right ones.
I feel for Alec. I feel for the players that turn up wanting to do really well, and often that's the fringe players that don't get the opportunity all the time. The only way their opportunities come is when other players drop out, and they then get the brunt of a bad result or a poor performance, or and you just want to see Scotland doing well. That's all everybody wants. We need all the guys there that are going to do that, and certainly me as a Scotland fan, you want nothing more.
Yeah, well, I think in a strange sort of way, you being here in the programme today kind of sums it up from a female perspective as well, because the last year hasn't been easy for you. You've been sitting on the bench, you've been sitting in the stand, but you're still there at the training camps, desperate to play for Scotland, whether it goes right or not. I think you epitomise what should be the attitude from other players.
There's no prouder moment. Roughie knows that as well, playing for your country, representing. I think at times you can get caught up in small matters that might affect your career. I think that what you need to do is make sure that when you do eventually step away from that you're content with the fact that you've given your absolute all, whether that's to better the game, to give the fans memories to remember for a lifetime. That's a responsibility you've got as a footballer, and I would like to think that everybody recognises that. That's got the fortune of pulling on a Scotland shirt.
Yeah, well, as Paul Hartley mentioned, you only have to look at Gareth Bale. I think he really sums it up, the desire to play for Wales.
And a lot of people out there don't really appreciate what it's like to pull on that jersey and stand there at a national anthem and be the best player of that position in your country.
What's it like,
that's
Roughie?
what it said, brother. It's just you can't describe it, and then you see people who don't want to do it or don't feel as if they want to do it. It's a hard one to take. It really is.
Yeah. I'll tell you one guy that would put himself through anything just to play for Scotland is Stevie Naismith, and I do hope it looks as if he's close to getting a deal done at Hearts for a couple of years. I do hope he stays with Hearts. I think he has been superb for them. He's certainly put himself in the frame for Scotland whenever called upon. For me, if injuries apart, he would be in my team of the season, no problem, without a shadow of doubt.
Yeah, well, you just have to notice the difference since he hasn't been on the Hearts side, and then one player, we always say, doesn't make a team, but he goes a long way to that. He influences everybody round about him, on the park, in the dressing room. So I think that's why Hearts have stumbled a wee bit, that he hasn't been there.
Yeah, you can give us your thoughts on Stevie Naismith. If they get him for a couple of years more, that will be absolutely magnificent for the Jambos. Elsewhere, of course, Derek McInnes has been speaking ahead of the weekend football, and they've got a game against Hearts at Tynecastle. He's come under a wee bit of criticism from time to time. I've been guilty of it myself with Derek. I thought maybe the ceiling point for him was maybe last season, the season before even. There's a strong case for saying Derek and Tony should have got out of Pittodrie, but he's hung in there, and he's built another side with lots of good young players too, and it would be, I think, the icing on the cake this season if they could topple Celtic in the semi-final.
Yeah, I think you've touched on it briefly there. I think it's the young players are exciting him. He's looking to the future. He's starting to get them on long-term deals, and he's hoping they'll be there in 2 or 3 years, which he'll get the benefit of. So yeah, and I think they'll really, now with beating Rangers and having the success against Rangers, they'll think that they can take Celtic this time. I think they get more and more confidence of getting to big semi-finals and playing in big games, that these young players now are beginning to believe that they can do it.
Yeah. Do you fancy them?
They're fearless. And I think that's the beauty of having a team full of young players, is that they don't have the rationale yet to think about losing. They don't have that fear. As you get older in your career, you think about every scenario, you think about how it could pan out, whereas these young guys, they just go, they give their heart and soul, and they just play to win. And I think Derek certainly manages to get the best out of them. As you say, we've criticised them at various points over the last couple of seasons, but I think they've proven again that even in a lesser budget to the Old Firm, losing their key players over the last couple of seasons, that they're able to still compete, and I certainly think it'll be very close. I think without that pressure, the pressure's on Celtic, they're chasing that treble, so I think Derek will certainly fancy his chances, and the young guns in that team will be looking forward to it. Yeah,
I was just wondering if there's a wee bit of psychology there, Roughie, from Leanne. As you get older, you start to worry and overanalyse things, She's just a wee bit of an insight into what she's doing now in her career. Anyway, listen, listen, if you are going to a football match, we always say get out there and support Scottish football. Tonight it could be a 9 or a 10 goal thriller, and the reason I mention that, Roughie, is because St Johnstone against St Mirren, Tommy Wright's men have conceded 20 goals, which is unbelievable. I think they've only scored 3 in the last, no wins in the last 9 games, and then in contrast 1 win in the last 9 for St Mirren. They have conceded 19 goals and scored 7, so it's 2 rank rotten defences, Roughie.
Yeah, but it's a massive game, particularly for St Mirren, you know, but I think this will go right down to the wire. St Mirren haven't convinced anybody that they can win games or even back-to-back games, so if they were to get anything out of this, even a draw would be a bonus for St Mirren.
Yeah, who are you going for?
St Johnstone.
Okay.
I've actually got a sneaky feeling that St Mirren might get a win.
Yeah?
Yeah, but I think their last couple of performances have kind of shown that they've got a wee bit about them. I think, you know, a couple of draws here and there, that's the momentum that they need. As much as that to other teams in the league might not be great, but I think when you're in the position that St Mirren are in, if you can get a point at least and keep that going. But I think with St Johnstone, the way they've been performing of late is just not the Tommy Wright St Johnstone that we're used to seeing. Okay,
that's just about it from us. How have you handled being with 2 clean-shaven guys on? I know you started out with us, but you're playing a bit of a double agent at the moment. Are you happy with the clean-shaven look? Yeah,
it's been a struggle, but you've done okay.
Yeah, thanks to Leanne from Roughie and myself. Thanks for watching.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.